Hello, good afternoon, wherever you are. So today I wanted to just share something. I wanted to talk about the importance of being able to get along with people that have opposing views as you. And I feel like in today's world, with the world where we are today, we struggle with a lot of we struggle with people that have opposing views. I think it's because the world is becoming more and more polarized, and what I do see is people going into their own little echo chambers. So people that believe certain things, which is natural, right? You tend to get along with other people, but I think it's become very tribal, and then we can see that in, like, say, the American political sphere or the British political sphere, and it's slowly creeping into the Nigerian sphere as well. And it's something I've been observing, and it's really interesting because personally, I am somebody that is very comfortable sparking conversations or sparking opposing conversations with people that I know that I disagree with. In fact, I don't know if I can, if I start to echo the same things all the time with the people around me every single time, an innate part of me feels very uncomfortable. I don't know why. It's just always been my case. Maybe it's I guess, the devil's advocate in me. Like, I'm always trying to spark different perspectives. But we were just discussing this on Clubhouse this morning, and we were all sharing our thoughts about it. And and unfortunately, we live in a world where now I see people that when someone has an opposing view, instead of listening and trying to understand, excuse me, I promise you it's not corona. Instead of listening and trying to understand why this person thinks what they think, right? Because think about it, you don't lose anything by trying to understand, empathize with someone, because understanding where they're coming from. Because there's two things that will happen if you listen very carefully. They either challenge a view of yours that you've held really deeply, and now you think maybe there's more for me to learn. Maybe this view that I hold, or they actually confirm they are unable to decipher, because if they eloquently put their points, they would, if their points are weak, then by listening to them, you'll be able to pick apart those parts and say, well, this does not make sense. And that way you actually strengthen your belief. But to do this, you have to come from a place of honesty, where you have to be honest with yourself, which is basically, am I listening to understand, or am I listening to respond? And this is something I struggled with when I was much younger, where I just used to listen to respond. I would just want to listen to you because I already have these attacking points. And I was speaking to a wonderful lady today, and she was telling me about how she liked the way I put certain points together, because by putting certain disclaimers, that even when she found herself listening to respond, I had already sort of like put these defense mechanisms by just saying a few things, because now, and she's like, oh, I wanted to attack him based on this angle, but then I was able to do that. And I was trying to tell her that actually this didn't really come overnight. It's not just a natural gift for me personally. It took me years of really having uncomfortable conversations, and a lot of these conversations I had to be burned. I had to be humbled. It didn't really end well. I lost friends or relationships in the process. So now I've that emotional and intellectual maturity has come, but it didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of trial and error. But the funny thing is that trial and error that people are failing to do today, that trial and error of, let me disagree with this person and see if their point makes sense. Because when you do that, is you have uncomfortable conversations. The truth becomes the measure by which both of you are like measuring success. The truth is in the middle. So you're all loyal to both of you are loyal to the truth. But that requires you to be honest, because it's easy for us to get to the place where we just want to be loyal to our own point or our own point of view. And I think it's something that I think we're losing as social media. I don't know if we're losing it, but I think social media does not make, especially Twitter, does not make it a safe, not, I don't want to use the word safe space, but it does not make it, it almost makes it intolerable for people, or acceptable for people, to just not listen and just drive home their point. And I also, what it does show is the deep inner narcissist in all of us, and each and every one of us, we're all susceptible to this. So I can give you some tips as to how I have uncomfortable conversations with people. when I have uncomfortable conversations, I'm very, very firm with my points. At that point in time, I'm not focusing on the other person as to why they should believe what I believe. I'm more focused on telling them why I believe what I believe and how in my head what I believe makes sense. Because a lot of times when people, it's just like religion, right? A lot of people come from the angle of you should worship this God because this God is awesome, or this religion. They're coming from the angle where it's all about you. They've already made you the enemy. They made you the opposing side, versus I believe in this religion, or I worship this God because it makes sense. I do this and this is really healthy. Any viewpoint of yours, you should be able to communicate it from your own perspective, why it works for you, right? Because if you really believe it, then you should know why it works for you and why you believe what you believe. Then when you echo that out, if it makes sense, it would relate with the other person, or the other person would relate with it. You'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, this person believe in this and that. That actually makes sense. Maybe I should adopt this because this actually is going to help my life and it makes sense in my head. Or if it's something that is, if I say I believe in killing twins, for example. So if backstory, at some point in Nigeria, there's a certain part of Nigeria back in, before, civilization, or not, I wouldn't say civilization, but there's a time when it was acceptable to kill twins because people didn't really understand. They saw it they didn't see it as a norm. They saw it as as an evil thing, and, where was I going with this? Actually, I'm just thinking. But if I believe that, and I'm telling you why I believe, I think there's something evil in twins and all of that, then I tell you, no, actually, it's very normal. An embryo or whatever, how you call it, can split into two, and then that's why two human beings, blah, blah, blah. I scientifically, or use some objective truth to explain it to you. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just giving you the observable evidence. It's up to you to then take that in and say, that makes sense, to go and do your own research. But I'm not making it your problem. I'm just saying this is why I believe what I believe. And if I say, I believe we should be able to murder twins, and I don't believe that, by the way. And because every time a twin is born, someone blah, 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 blah. By listening to you, I can then dissect your points and be like, actually, no, this thing where something evil is going to happen actually is not really true, but I'm able to just present you with the evidence. Now, of course, this is an oversimplified, terrible example, but I think this is one way. If you want people to listen to you, you can really dissect and decipher their points by, first of all, listening to them honestly, not to respond, but to understand. And you should get into that conversation accepting that a potential 50-50 outcome is that your views will be changed, or your views will be strengthened, but you don't know which it is. So you should go with that conversation that I'm going into this conversation, potentially this person can view. If someone's trying to convince me that the earth is flat, I believe the earth is round. I would go into that conversation thinking, what if they're able to prove a point to me? Now, I believe the earth is flat, and I think that's objectively from my perspective. So I would only give them my own point. But I would also go in that conversation saying, okay, I want them to present me something. And I'm accepting that I can have my views changed. As crazy as that sounds, in my perspective, I can have my views changed. Now, and so on Twitter, one thing I do is when I get into uncomfortable conversations with people on the timeline, the first thing I do is I send a direct message, and I try to have a conversation with them via voice, like over a phone call or Skype. That tends to help. What you do is realize is the people that actually want to contribute and want to educate you or want to educate themselves will take that opportunity. Those that do not want to do that, they just want to ramble on, and you can easily decipher. And sometimes you go on a conversation with people, but they don't want to learn anything. They just want to drive home their point. And then you also know, at least now you gave the person the benefit of that, but they don't want to learn here. They don't want to teach anybody. They just want to drive home their point. Then it's easier for you to do that. And I've actually made a lot of friends this way. I can think of one friend, and if he's watching this, he knows. I made a lot of friends this way. A lot of the friends I have, I'm able to have uncomfortable conversations. And the reason why is when I'm able to have uncomfortable conversations with people and we still go home as friends, I'm able to trust those people. And actually, in return, they are able to trust you because they know exactly that truth is what you stand for. You just want to know what is true. And if they do present you with facts that are objectively true, you will accept it. They can trust that you will accept it. And you can also extend that same courtesy to them. And this is really interesting. I said this in Clubhouse today earlier. The more like close friends I can have uncomfortable conversations. I can tell them, I don't think you should date this person. If they ask me, should I date this person? I can tell them, I don't think you should date this person, for example. Or, I don't think, this job is right for you. I don't think this is right for you. I can objectively tell them something. I think you look, you don't look good in that dress. I don't think so. I think this action is terrible. And it leads me to one time I had something that recently happened in my life. A very good friend of mine, actually, really, really close friend of mine. Interestingly, certain things happened and we kind of went, I guess we went our separate ways. But one interesting thing that I'm not, was I a little bit hurt? I was a little bit hurt because this person is someone that's really dear, close to me. But there was something they said to me one time after they said they were hoping that I will change and that I disappointed them. Now, I'm not going to get into why they said those or what if I really did disappoint them or not. Besides the point, that's more of a private conversation. But what it led me to understand is, so this person, in my opinion, had idealized me to this perfect version of myself where if only I had stripped out all these things and I became this perfect version without these bad things, then they would be my utmost friend. And it was interesting when I heard that. I was like, that's crazy. Because when I looked at this person, I knew that I disagreed with them on certain things. But it didn't really matter to me because I still saw them as a close friend, a companion. And I was like, we're never ever going to agree on these things, but that's fine. So sometimes, if we want to have the conversation, we'll have it. If we don't need to have a conversation, we don't need to have it. I'm not going to go to them to try to convince them to change their views because that's fine. Whether they change their views or not, they deserve my friendship. And that's one thing I really learned from that experience. That exchange was deep for me because it was personal to me because I was like, interesting. So it's just something I guess I wanted to share. And I think it's important that you understand with people, if you know that, look, someone needs to change a certain point of view for you to be friends with them, then don't be friends with them. But don't be friends with them hoping that they will change. No. It's actually unfair on the other person because you've idealized them in your head and you're expecting that they become a new version. It's like getting into a relationship, you're hoping that someone will change. No, accept them for who they are, for the person you see in front of you. And so, just thought I'd share this soundbite today. Okay? All right then, until next time.